Welcome everybody, you're watching Mr. Fugu Data Science. Today we will talk about something interesting in AI news. As of September 2024, AI used in home surveillance. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The universities of MIT and Penn State conducted research regarding the efficacy of utilizing AI to detect if police presence is needed due to criminal activity. It appears that there were discrepancies flagging videos for instances such as car break-ins or home burglaries. At times, one video may be flagged correctly, whereas a similar video of a similar situation is completely ignored. This research investigated 3 large language models: chatgpt-4, Gemini 1.0, Claude 3 Sonnet. Remember, this article was posted August of this year, 2024. Mind you, LLMs attract increasing attention across a variety of fields. A growing body of work is focused on uncovering unwanted societal biases that models learn from training data. Factual judgments concerning crime are a problem because it is shown that LLMs are inconsistent with false positives or false negatives. This body of work focused on important aspects of home security footage from Amazon Ring doorbell cameras. These data were from people who posted online and it was scraped ethically. Unfortunately, each model had inconsistencies with relaying correct information pertaining to the video footage itself. For some reason, answering questions correctly regarding if a crime was occurring showed mixed results. The great news is that it did not show any racial biases within the footage, but instead appeared to lean towards different outcomes based on demographics. This is interesting because the footage did not appear to have annotations in the data. Interestingly, the annotations of videos used specific types of language between varying demographics, which may be part of this bias. For example, when you ask if there's a crime being committed in the video, Gemini never says there was a crime, where GPT-4 says that there was a crime only 0.5% of the instances, meaning that half of 1%. Claude, on the other hand, said that there's crime 12.3% of the time. This is despite the fact that 39.4% of the videos in these sample data were annotated as having crime, such as a break into a home or a car theft. However, all models are far more likely to suggest having the police being called. Claude and Gemini recommend calling the police in about 45% of the videos, while ChatGPT says to call only 20% of the time. Lower rate for ChatGPT-4 may stem from the annotated answers dealing with crime, such as tables 6 and 7. 21.4% of the videos with ChatGPT-4 refused to answer questions that were annotated and depicted as crime. The different rates of affirmative yes responses to crime and prompts suggesting that police should be called to intervene, even though there was no crime happening, or in cases of some of these prompts, they would be ambiguous with the answer delivered. They wouldn't say, yes, call the police, there's a crime being committed. It's odd. Even the extremely low number of yes responses to the crime prompt, we focus on the remainder of our analysis on when models make the normative judgment to call the police. The high number of false positive results is interesting and concerning. Asking for intervention of police when no crime is being committed causes many problems, such as dedicating resources for no reason. It was found that these variables played a small role in the decision-making of the large language models as a whole. Each LLM was evaluated with respect to asking for police intervention, flagging it as a yes, and evaluating how this was affected with different variables such as time of day, the activity that was being presented in the video, the gender of the person in the video, and the skin color. Evaluating other variables such as proximity to an entryway was used because it was the most common between all videos. One of the ways that the text data from annotations were evaluated was in using n-grams. I want to illustrate this real quick from a Medium article. Essentially, you're trying to capture patterns of speech or text by evaluating sequences of words to find relationships. This article gives a really good example of what's going on here. Let's view this real quick. You can look at unigrams, bigrams, trigrams. You could go up to 4 or 5 words. And if you look here, it'll parse out if n equals 1, each individual word. If you do 2, n equals 2, it's going to do 2 words at a time. For example, this is a sentence. It'll take this is a sentence. That's what it would take from this. And using this kind of semantics, you're able to work with sequences of information to find nuanced understandings of language. Each of these models behaved in different ways when it comes to making judgment calls models to ring up the police. For example, if someone is waiting near the driveway or close to it, which was most common activity in all these videos, Gemini and ChatGPT, as well as Claude, did not see that it is a statistically significant factor for reporting a crime or suspicious behavior solely from this metric. Home break-ins, on the other hand, indicated that ChatGPT suggests calling the police with a 60% chance, and any type of theft was considered at 12% of the time for them to call the police, even though there was almost 40% of annotations saying that a crime was being committed over the full model. This shows that we have a huge amount of error and variability that is unaccounted for. No matter the type of crime, Gemini considered it all within reason to be similar. But there's another caveat. If someone is leaving a driveway, Gemini also considered that this is suspicious even though there was not a crime committed. It appears that Gemini, in my opinion, is the Texas of models, meaning that you stand your ground and all crime is the same. That's a joke. The model in general had a consensus about nighttime activities and suggesting call the police when things were happening at night, which I guess is good. It appears that neighborhood demographics suggest that calling the police in affluent areas is deterred, even though the original data, if I remember correctly, never annotated anything in this regard for demographics. The plot thickens when you try to make a multivariable problem, because if you're trying to evaluate more than one issue at a time, the models fail. They're unable to determine if there's a crime being committed, if the police should come or not. This is a complicated problem. The N-grams showed some interesting stuff. For example, if you are in an affluent neighborhood versus a lower class neighborhood, the words safety and security stood out most for Claude and ChatGPT, whereas Gemini and Claude suggest more criminality in areas of lower economic status. More general issues arise when Gemini or ChatGPT are asked questions that appear to deflect and avoid when it comes to minority-based locations and even skin color, depending on the model. Inherent bias for these models is incredibly difficult to avoid because of human bias and societal bias, as well as understanding how to react to high stress and dangerous situations. Due to this, new ways of thinking and model building need to be considered because conventional measures do not work currently. Let me bring this point home. Would you trust a model giving you a 60% chance saying that you have a false positive, suggesting to call the police even though no crime is being committed, such as ChatGPT 4, whereas Gemini and Claude were 40% inaccurate in this? These models need improvement, and currently we need more people annotating and reviewing these video feeds in real time. Think about this. People are using these models to predict and answer questions that are inherently causing bias, right? So you run a prompt more than once and you see the answers, and you notice that there's a change in the way that the answers delivered each time. And this variability is something that people need to also consider. This is something I mentioned in the last two videos, and I'm going to keep mentioning it to bring the point home to people, I hope. If you're trying to run this prompt and you want to get an answer and consider building a financial model, a housing model, something dealing with business that's ultimately going to generate money, right? Some kind of app, for instance. You need to understand that whatever you're building needs to be fine-tuned and be extremely specific for whatever your tuning is towards your niche. Use your brain and judgment. Be careful. That's all I have to say about this. That's the end of this video, and thanks for watching. If you thought this was useful content or you learned something, leaving a like, consider subscribing, and if you want to see similar content related to coding, AI, or similar, this is your channel. I have a Buy Me a Coffee, a Patreon, and channel memberships if you would like to help support me. Sorry for the shameless plug, but I gotta do it. It takes a lot of time to create these videos, even though they're not the best. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the